Well, hi, Zion Fellowship. Yes, we're at Zion Fellowship. We're in the fellowship hall. It's super fun being with you. This is the message that would have been preached March 22, 2020. So take your Bible and find Luke 15. Luke chapter 15. There, so you're tapping in your app or you're flipping in your pages and you're going to Luke 15. There are three stories in Luke 15. We will look at the third of the three. That's the goal for today. There are three stories in Luke 15, and we preachers say this several times to allow you time to tap all the way to Luke 15, so we're confident that you're about there now. The first story in Luke 15 is about a shepherd. The shepherd's got 100 sheep, and one of the sheep goes missing. And the shepherd, clearly inspired by Corey Asbury's reckless love, leaves the 99 sheep that are fine, goes and finds the one that's missing. And we learn about our God, that God wants everyone home. We learn at the beginning of Luke 15 that the heart of God is that all the lost would come home. And it's a great lesson. The second story in Luke 15 is about a woman who has 10 silver coins. They are probably wrapped in a wreath, and they probably represent her dowry. And one of the coins falls out of the wreath. She loses one of the coins. And she turns her house upside down. No stone unturned, the lantern everywhere, lighting up every pocket of her house. And she finds the coin. And when she finds the coin, she's very excited. And she calls all of her friends, and she tells all of her friends, "You wouldn't believe it, I lost my coin, and now I've found my coin." And we learn from Luke 15 that the heart of our God is to rejoice when the lost is found. That's the heart of our God. It's not always the heart of God's people, but it is the heart of God to rejoice when the lost comes home, when the lost is found. And so this third story builds on the previous two. It is the focus of our study. And if you've been to church for a long time, you have heard this sermon preached, sort of. You think you know where I'm going. You probably don't know where I'm going. So pay attention for the next little while, and we'll read the story of the prodigal son, and we'll dig deep into it. Luke 15, beginning in verse 11. Jesus continued, "There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, 'Father, give me my share of the estate.' So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, 'How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and here I am starving to death? I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Quick! Bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' So they began to celebrate. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. And when he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. 'Your brother has come,' he replied, 'and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound.' The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, 'Look, All these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never even gave me a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who has squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him." "My son," the father said, "you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." The younger brother asks his dad for his share of the estate. The commentators indicate that this was insulting to the father. Basically, he says to the father, "Let's skip ahead to the part where you die and I get my share of the inheritance. Let's just skip ahead to that." And apparently, according to the commentators, this is insulting. We don't know why the younger son asks this. Maybe he had a rough teenage go. Maybe he was just tired of living under dad's rules. That's basically what he says. The younger son basically says, "I don't want to live under dad's rules anymore. So since I don't want to live under dad's rules, let's skip ahead to the part where you die and I get my share of the estate. And then we can not have this back and forth where you've got to come down hard on me and I've got to sneak around behind your back. Like, let's just get to the part where we part ways and I get what's coming to me." Lots of parents have heard this over the years, because lots of kids have said, "I don't want to live under daddy's rules anymore. I just don't want to live under daddy's rules anymore." In my house, it's a little bit epic. When my oldest two were little girls, they were done with chores. They did not want to load another dishwasher or pick up another toy or anything. And so they decided one night at bedtime, they hatched their plan. And they said, "Dad, we want you to know, we're going to build a house. And this house is going to be our house. And you're not going to be in charge anymore in our house. And so you're not going to be able to tell us what to do." I said, I'm the trained secondary educator. So I said, "Tell me more." And they pulled out pictures of the house they had drawn. They had drawn this house from the front, both sides, the back, top-down view, floor plan. They had thought this through. This is going to be our house. We're going to build this house, and you're not going to be in charge. We don't want your rules. "This is a very nice house," I said. "Where are you going to put this house?" "Oh, we're going to put it in the side yard in between our driveway and where Frank and Nancy live." I said, "Oh, you're going to put this on my land?" And he said, "Oh, absolutely, Dad. We love you. We just don't like your rules." And isn't that what we do sometimes? God, we love you. We love the idea of you. We love that you reign over everything. But these commandments. God, we love you. We exalt you. We praise you. But these verses right here. God, we love you. We're for you. We adore you. But these things you want me to do. We do this. We decide, I don't want to live under Daddy's rules anymore. Daddy's rules are just too much for me. Think about what Dad had to do here. Dad has to figure out a third of what he's worth. 2 sons, but the older son gets an extra share. So you figure out what you're worth, you divide it by 3, and then you've got to sell off that much property until you have a third of your worth on hand. And then he gave that cash to his younger son. And his younger son took that cash and left. And when he left, he blew it on what the NIV calls wild living. The King James calls it prodigal living. He's not the prodigal son, because he ran away from home. He's the prodigal son because he lived extravagantly on the money from his dad. That's what made him prodigal. If he had ever heard Dave Ramsey a day in his life, he rejected all such counsel. All such counsel. Dave Ramsey would have said, if you take this money and you save it and you invest like this and you do like this, you can live for a while. And he was having none of that. He blew the money. He lived high off the hog, blew the money until it was gone. The younger son represents for us sensual living. The younger son is living for what he can experience with his senses. He is putting himself front and center. He's not interested in rules. He's not interested in restraint. He's interested in what he can see and touch and feel. He's interested in deciding for himself that he is in charge. He doesn't want daddy's rules. He doesn't want daddy's restraints. He is in charge. But Jesus teaches us very clearly that sensual living is not the way to God. And we know this because Jesus actually says that the younger brother comes to his senses and decides he'll go home. He knows that he brings nothing to the table. He's not going home to say, Dad, here are all the reasons you should take me back. He has come to his senses and he's recognizing that the whole I am the captain of my soul thing isn't going well for him. And he belongs home. It should be noted here, and I would be remiss if I didn't preach it. When the younger brother goes home, his dad receives him with open arms. The younger brother thinks he has burned the bridge. But his dad had gone out and built another bridge so that they could be together when younger brother came home. So I will say this explicitly. If you have been living sort of younger brother, if you have been living as if you are the captain of your soul, you are in charge of your destiny, you are the only one who tells you what to do. If you've been living that way and you're reaching a point where you're saying, if I'm coming to my senses here, I've been off base. You may think that you have burned a bridge that cannot be rebuilt. But your dad has built the bridge so you can come back. He has rebuilt, built another, made a way so that you can come back. If you think that you've gone too far where you can't come back home, I assure you, God does not think that way. God does not feel that way about you, period. There is always a way back.